Hello you guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a new video. I am so excited. Also, I'm a little bit more done up than usual because I was doing a little trial run on my makeup for the engagement party this weekend. So yeah, I don't usually like this glam when I'm doing my budget, but you know, we had to do a little trial run. But I was just about to sit down and do kind of like my payday routine, and something that kind of just came up randomly in my head, which is why I was like, I need to pull up the camera and vlog this right now, was like keeping my finances organized. And I feel like that is the part that sometimes maybe scares people, or we just like overcomplicate things. And so I wanted to sit down and just kind of talk about some of the ways that we keep our finances organized, because there's obviously so many videos out there on like how to do a payday routine, how to do a monthly budget, how to make a budget, how to save, how to pay off debt, etc. But then no one really talks about, okay, when you have all those things established, like how do you keep your finances organized? And I just kind of wanted to make this super chatty, sit down, casual style. You know, the vibe is always we're in a coffee shop, we're doing our budget together, and I'm just pulling out my notes and we're just gonna chat about how we keep our finances organized, like super chill. And I'm really excited about it. Start off by saying that I do have a video called How I Manage My Money. I'll put the little like screenshot of it here. I would go watch that video before this one, because that one gives a lot of the setup of like my different accounts, my different credit cards, like the deep dive into all of my accounts and how I manage my money. So go watch that video if you guys haven't already. I can like summarize it super quick for you guys, but make sure you guys watch that video first, because a lot of the questions I was getting are kind of answered in that video. So I have just some general tips, budget tips, bills, monthly check-ins with your partner, bank account, savings, debt, etc. Like I said, it's just going to be about keeping your money organized. I honestly think that as much as a budget is important, I mean, obviously I monthly budget and stuff, organization is really key for keeping track of your finances, paying your bills on time, etc. If your finances aren't organized, they're a mess. And right now I feel like my finances are not super organized, but that's just because if you keep out the vlogs, we're in a very limbo position right now of selling our house, buying a new house. I have no idea what our new bills are going to be. Well, I know they're going to be lower than this house, but there's just so much in the air right now and nothing feels organized. So I just want to remind you guys that even people who love to talk about personal finance don't always have their shit together, okay? I have not filled out my budget spreadsheet at all, and it's like halfway through the month. That's also a question I'm going to get to, so let's jump into it. Okay, let's start with the most important piece of all, which is the budget, how you track your money, all that kind of stuff. Guys, let me tell you, stop overcomplicating it and just do it, okay? It doesn't need to be as complicated as everyone makes it seem. When I ask you guys for questions on Instagram, I think the most asked question I get is like, how do you find time to track your finances? And it doesn't have to be complicated. I sit down and track all of my finances on payday it takes me maybe 10-15 minutes when I'm inputting my paycheck, and then I input all those expenses from the last 2 weeks into my spreadsheet. You could also do something like an app that's a bit easier to do on the go, like Wine App or Mint, Every Dollar, anything like that that's more accessible on the go. But I feel like we all have pockets of time. Like we all sit and scroll on TikTok for like hours and hours on end, and yet we all complain about like, how do you find time to budget your money? Guys, it literally, I promise you, does not take more than 15 to 20 minutes to do every 2 weeks. And you can also pick the frequency that works with you, if it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, etc. Like, I think the thing about budgeting and getting your finances organized is that it's a ton of trial and error. It's a ton of trying different spreadsheets, different apps, and just seeing what works for you. Maybe it's a mix of both. Same goes for spending, right? Like, you might do like a cash envelope system, you might just do debit, you might do credit, you might do a mix. Like, it really just depends. But it looks like everyone has their shit together online, and that's because, well, first of all, they don't always have their shit together, but I've tried so many different things and I kind of figured out what worked for me and stuck with me. And you just gotta try different things to see what's gonna work in the end. For example, when I started budgeting, I did a somewhat version of like a cash envelope system where I had like a separate bank account and I would transfer money to spend there. I did the prepaid debit card thing for a while. When I got really serious into paying off my student loan debt, I used Every Dollar for a while, then transferred into a spreadsheet. And I've tried so many different spreadsheets and I kind of go back and forth, but the one that you guys see me use like every month is definitely the one that works best for me. So you really have to figure out what works for you, and it's gonna take time, but I promise you'll figure it out. It goes for like budgeting method, right? You might do like a zero-based dollar budget, 50-30-20, more intuitive spending mindset where like every month is gonna be a little bit different. And I think that's kind of what I started following. Like this month, for example, I'm not really buying much for myself because we are, you know, getting stuff for the engagement party, or some months we travel. And so I like to follow more of like an intuitive conscious spending model, kind of like Ramit Sethi talks about in his book. the one thing I will say that is a great place to start in terms of like getting your finances organized is a money map. And what I want you to do is literally take a piece of paper and map out where your money starts and where your money ends. I'll give you guys kind of an example of what mine currently looks like. But it's a great way, especially if you're visual. I'm super visual. Obviously, I talk with like my hands and stuff. It's a really great way for you to see where your money is being broken down to and where it's going. And also a great place to start if you're like, okay, I'd love for, you know, to get paid. It all goes into this account, and then I have a bills account, and then I have a spending account, and then this credit card. It's a great way, especially if you're visual, to kind of find a good place to start. And you can try a few different money maps if you want, but that is a really great place to start when it comes to getting your finances organized, I think. If you're just starting out with keeping your finances organized, I highly recommend starting simple. Start simple with just a like monthly budget template. That's it. A lot of the budget spreadsheets nowadays, the one I use is like an ultimate budget tracker. So it has like your savings goals, your debt payoff, your credit history, your financial health, your no spend days. And I think it can be super overwhelming. I tried a new budget spreadsheet maybe 2 months ago now, and I was insanely overwhelmed. I had to go back to the one I was using before because I was way too overwhelmed. So I think it's super important to start small. So just start with like a monthly spreadsheet that kind of allows you to track your month, and that's really it. And then when you feel comfortable with that and you want to add in, you know, a savings tracker and stuff, you can. But I think starting simple is the way to go, because if you start with like this super intense spreadsheet and you get overwhelmed and you feel like super chaotic and disorganized, you're not going to stick with it. And so small progress is better than no progress. Start small, work your way to something bigger, or maybe you just enjoy doing a monthly spreadsheet and that's it. I feel like when it comes to organizing your finances, bills plays a big factor into that, in terms of like, how do I know when a bill's coming out, etc. And when I first started my budget journey, I was the worst for this. I was going to overdraft literally so much. I never knew when a bill was coming out. And once again, we overcomplicate things when it comes to our budget. It's truly as simple or as complicated as we make it. So first, I think it's obviously important, write down all of your bills when they come out and the amount that they are. And then depending if you're a paper planner or a digital planner person, then you can obviously allocate accordingly. I'm, for example, am a Google Calendar person, so I'll put a screenshot of what my Google Calendar looks like. And that just reminds me of paydays and of bills that are coming out. One tip that I have in terms of organizing your finances, you can go one of two ways. So you can either line up as many of your bills to come out on payday as possible. So our mortgage, my car payments, and our gym comes out on payday. That way I don't have to think twice about it. I get paid, these things come right out of my account. I don't have to worry about, do I have enough money to pay the mortgage this month, etc., because it comes out on payday. But then the other method you could do if you get paid maybe monthly or like a bit more sporadically is you can actually space out your bill payments. So there's of course auto pay. This can be just bills, or this can be like savings, investments, etc. I definitely don't think auto pay is for everyone. If you have very consistent every 2 week income, I think auto pay can be really, really great. Like if you get paid a salary 9 to 5 every 2 weeks, then you know you might feel more comfortable having your auto pay on. But if you have more fluctuating income, you work part-time, healthcare is a good example. You know, your hours may fluctuate. Even if you're a shift worker, your paychecks can like vary drastically. You can decide if it's for you or not. You could have like a bills account that you transfer your money into, and then when, you know, it's time to pay those bills, you pay it out of that account. Or you can have auto pay. There's no really right or wrong answer. I personally like having auto pay set up for certain bills, not like our bigger ones, but our smaller ones, because I just feel like life gets so busy and crazy that sometimes you forget, you don't want to affect your credit, etc. So I do have auto pay turned on for some smaller bills, but not like our, I mean, I guess your mortgage and stuff is like auto pay. I'm not sure about rent and stuff. How does that work? We used to just like e-transfer the money, but now that we have a mortgage, it obviously comes out of our account every 2 weeks. But that is something to consider as well if you are like more of a forgetful person, or you're trying to be more organized, is put them in a calendar, decide which, you know, bills you want on auto pay or not. You can also call your companies for these bills, so like your car payment, insurance, etc., and ask them to change the dates, or at least in Canada you can. When I got my car, they actually asked me what day I wanted my payments to come out of. Same thing with my, not my car insurance, that always comes out on the 21st, but our mortgage too, they asked us, you know, which dates we wanted it to come out of. So there is some flexibility there, and you can almost maybe like map out your ideal monthly calendar and figure out which bills you can change, which ones you can't. I know like rent is typically like the first of the month, so maybe you can't change that one, but maybe you want to align your car payments to come out on payday. And so I think having a calendar is a great place to start, whether it's like just a printed calendar and you kind of just draw out all your existing bill dates, and then in a different color maybe highlight where you would want them and tweak them if need be. I also always keep a running checklist of our monthly bills in my budget spreadsheet. I will say, I feel like I'm at a point now in my like adulting life where I'm kind of used to the bills that come out. When I first started paying like rent and stuff when we first moved out, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot keep up with all these different dates. And so having a checklist was really good to when I was like inputting my budget. I could see on the side like, okay, these are all the bills that are coming out, and you kind of, you know, you can have it in your notes app or like on your desktop or something so that it never is like far out of sight. But I do think that it's good to have a checklist or in your calendar somewhere so you're not having like a, oh shit, why do I have $3 in my bank account? Oh, it's because my car insurance came out today. You know, we don't want those moments. Your tip I have for keeping your finances organized with your bills is overshooting on those fluctuating bills. So our utilities range from like $120 a month to like $300 something a month because our water is not included in the house, or like, I don't know, we pay the city water. So our bills can fluctuate a lot. So I always overshoot my bills on the high end for those fluctuating bills. Not that there's many reoccurring bills that are fluctuating. Like your rent is pretty consistent, your mortgage, your car payment, etc. Actually, I guess if you have a variable rate mortgage with it can obviously vary like when you like renew and stuff, but I always try and have a wiggle room and overshoot on those fluctuating bills. Another question I get asked a ton when I put a question box on Instagram for finances is finances with your partner. I'm gonna sit and say there's no right or wrong way to do it. You have to do what works best for you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Matt and I do our finances separately. When we get married, we're probably gonna leave them separate too, because once again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Matt and I split all of our bills 50-50, and we honestly just kind of like go back and forth with like expenses. We take turns paying for groceries. When it comes to groceries, it really just, we take turns. Big Costco hauls we split, smaller ones like yesterday we went to Costco, we spent 60 bucks, I just paid for it. We each have our own cars, so we don't split gas or anything. We'll split gifts. Even then, sometimes we don't. Like our nephew just turned 1, I got his gift. Matt will get someone else's gift. Like, I don't know. So yeah, I don't really have much advice on like doing your finances together. We don't even have like a joint savings account, a joint debit account or anything. There's nothing really to dive into about it. Like that's just what we do. But because we do our finances separately, or even if you do your finances together, I think one of the biggest things that's helped us in terms of keeping our money organized and communicating about it has been doing monthly money check-ins. So we try and do these every single month, and I have a list of all the questions that we ask each other so I can share them with you guys. But this is just a chance for us, because we do our finances separately, to have a check-in on our savings goals, how we're feeling with our money, etc., which I think is so important when it comes to keeping your finances organized, is talking about them openly. Things we talk about: savings progress, how we feel towards money, upcoming big expenses, etc. Especially right now with moving, we're talking a lot about like, okay, are we gonna get movers, are we not? Like, how much money do you feel comfortable, like, you know, having in your savings, blah blah blah. So some of the questions that we ask each other include: how does your money feel right now? Do you feel like we're on track with our financial goals? Do we have any upcoming big purchases? We usually like revisit our vision on like what our best life looks like, you know, like, oh, where do we want to be in 5-10 years? Has your recent spending been aligned with your priorities? Are there priorities that are becoming more or less important financially? But yeah, that may not seem like keeping your money organized, but for us it is, because we're both very communicative. Is that even a word? Communicative? We're really good communicators in our relationship, and so like talking about our money and our feelings is a great way for us to keep almost like our mental finances organized. So that's a really big tip I have, especially if you do your finances separate. All right, next thing I wanted to talk about was bank accounts. Like I said, I covered that in my how I manage my money video. I wanted to go over it here quickly as well. I feel like, once again, this is just trial and error. You might be someone who likes to have a lot of accounts. You might be someone who doesn't like to have a lot. Matt, for example, he just has one savings account. That's it. And he can split it up mentally in his head what's for what. I can't do that. I need a short-term savings, emergency fund, house savings. Like, I need all of the different accounts. And this is just something you're going to kind of learn over time. And it's also okay to start with a lot of accounts and then minimize them. So about once or twice a year, I go over my different checkings accounts and savings accounts and credit cards, and I kind of go over which ones I should keep, which ones I should switch, and which ones I should close, because I'm also a big like credit card rotator. So I kind of do a check-in about mid-year, so every 6 months, on just like all my different accounts and how I'm feeling about them, if they've, you know, run their course and I need to cancel them, if there's any fees. Sometimes you get like your first 3 months free at a bank and then you start paying, and so I think it's good to have a little check-in every 6 months on that. This is also a good time to consider switching banks if you know you have high fees that came out or something like that. Like, some people even do like a bills account, and a spending money account. I just do everything out of one account, honestly. I used to do that back when I was a little bit more of like on the spendier side and I couldn't really trust myself to have money in the account. I would have like, you know, my main account where everything went into on payday, and then I would transfer money to the bills account and to the spending money account. You would have seen this on the money map that I showed on the screen, but I just have a spending account. This is where everything comes in and everything comes out, whether it's bills, e-transfers, it's where my paychecks come in, it's where my dividends come in from the business, etc. And then from there I have, you know, the emergency fund, the short-term savings account, and then I don't have a credit card with RBC currently. I also have like my Neo accounts and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, in my how I manage my money video, I talk like deep dive. I have to keep like hitting it about that if you guys are interested. But once again, I think it just comes down to trial and error and what works for you. If having too many accounts open is giving you anxiety and not keeping you organized with your money, then something needs to change. And if you have too little accounts and you feel like you're not organized, something also needs to change there. Credit cards. I got a lot of questions. I guess it's just like credit and credit cards. I do track my credit through the budget spreadsheet that I use. I also do this on my notes app too, because I just feel like I'm always like buying things and returning them to like try for videos and stuff. And so I am not a financial expert. I'm not going to comment on like when the best time is to close a credit card, how long you should have a credit card open, etc., because everyone has different thoughts on this. I will say I close credit cards like once or twice a year, and I've never had it negatively impact my credit history. I do have my oldest credit card open, and I always will keep it open. It has like a $500 limit, but I'm not going to comment on that because I don't want to give people the wrong idea or anything. I'm not a financial professional by any means, but I pay my credit card off every 2 weeks on payday. That's the one thing I will say. And then, like I said, I track my credit cards in Notion because I'm someone who likes to do the whole credit card points system. It's super important for me to stay organized with that. So I have like the name of the card, I have the date I opened it, I have if there's an annual fee, welcome bonus. I'm trying to think what else I have. Let me see if I can pull it up maybe even. And this just allows me to be super on top of it, because for a lot of credit cards, I feel like being organized with your credit cards, especially if you're into like the points thing, is super, super important, because a lot of the times you'll get like your annual fee waived for the first year, and then the second year comes and you don't even realize that you got charged, or maybe you just decided not to like keep a credit card. Oh, here it is. I have it right now. I also have a column for like if I'm going to use it long term after the bonus, because there's some cards that once the 1 year is up, I've gotten my points, I've redeemed them through travel, I don't keep them open. Now this, I don't want to like overwhelm anyone, because doing the whole credit card point thing is not for everybody, but I think once you have a hold on your finances, it is fun to do this. Like now that I'm in a good spot with my budget, I've paid off my student loan debt, and I feel comfortable using a credit card again, now it's kind of fun to do these like little points rack ups. I also track accumulating my points. You can just do this on your notes app. Honestly, that's what I normally do, and so I just kind of track those. I can put an example of what that looks like here. I do recommend if you're planning a wedding, home renovations, that's what we did. Open up a new credit card that has one of these like, oh, get all these points if you spend $6,000 in the first 6 months, because we were already going to make the purchases for the home renovation, like the kitchen anyways, but then we got a ton of points. And that's why you guys see us travel. We rarely ever pay for like flights, hotels, etc., because we have so many credit card points. So I don't want to like overwhelm anyone. I definitely think it's important for us to get a grasp on budgeting and tracking your finances. Like don't just jump into like credit card points, because I think it can be a little overwhelming, especially if you're paying off debt. But once you get the hang of it, I promise it's not as scary as it looks. But I do keep that stuff super organized. I'm also very type A, so for me it's very fun to keep these spreadsheets and everything. And it's so satisfying when you like take a little box off and you're like that much closer to getting your points. So I always try and time opening new credit cards with like major life events like moving, renovations, planning a wedding, planning a big party, traveling, etc. When it comes to savings and investments, obviously when it comes to keeping your finances organized, I talked about auto pay. That's an option as well. And I just have a very simple savings tracker. I can plop it on the screen for you guys. I'm someone who, I'm very visual. Once again, I'm very type A, so I need a lot of like spreadsheets and structure in my life. But one tip I have for keeping your savings organized, if you're like me and you're a little bit of an impulsive spender, is I actually keep my savings in a different institution. I didn't normally do this, but what I did was I split up my emergency fund. So I have, well, my emergency fund just got very depleted because of the house deposits, but I had $7,500 total. I had $2,500 of that was accessible in my RBC bank, like my bank that I use for everyday banking, and then the rest of it was in EQ Bank because they have a really high interest rate, and that is the way I prefer to do it. That way if something did come up, I have money there to fall back on for an emergency. For example, the house deposit, we had to make within 24 hours and we each had to put $2,500. I needed that money right away. I couldn't wait the 3 to 5 business days for it to be transferred. So that's how I prefer to do it. Also, the more money that I don't have in my bank account in front of me, the less money I think in my head that I have and the less likely I am to spend it. So I don't do any investments through my bank. I use Wealthsimple for that. Once again, it just makes it a bit harder to access the money if you need it, which I mean can be a good or bad thing depending how you look at it. But as someone impulsive, it's really important for me to keep my savings out of my primary institution, except for a little bit, of course, because I'm more likely to see it and then use it if it's like right there and accessible. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to briefly touch on was debt. This isn't something I talk about a ton anymore because I've paid off the debt I want to pay off. If you guys are new here, I have a ton of older videos on this, but in January of 2020, I decided to pay off my student loans. I actually had about 2 years of student loans because my biological dad paid for my school, which shout out to my mom for hooking up that agreement. She didn't take any child support growing up. She just asked him to pay for my school one day, which I'm so grateful for her for making that sacrifice for me. But I did have about $20,000 in student loans because I had to take an extra year for mental health reasons when I was diagnosed with PTSD, and then just like books and stuff, it just like all accumulated. So I graduated with about $20,000 Canadian in student loan debt, and I personally made the choice to hustle to pay it off. I worked 2 jobs throughout the whole pandemic. If you guys have been around since those days, I used to work 6 to 2, like 6 a.m. to 2, and then go to work 3:30 to 8:30. I was just working at 2 different hospitals next door. And there's a ton of ways to pay off your debt, obviously, but for me, because it was the pandemic and we were in lockdowns for so much of it in Canada, I was like, let me just like hustle and work. There's literally nothing else I can do. We didn't have Stella yet, and Matt, obviously as an ICU nurse, was working like in, you know, with COVID patients. So we were just like, you know, let's just work. And so I was able to pay off my student loans in a year. I think it was a year and a half. I think it was a year and a half. It might have been 2. No, I definitely think it was a year and a half. So that is like the debt that I like hustled to pay off. And at that time I was following Dave Ramsey's snowball method, which I don't agree with Dave Ramsey anymore. Like personally, our beliefs just don't align. That was the only debt I wanted to pay off. And then I actually sold my car. I had a 2018 Ford Focus with a super high interest rate because I got fucked over at the car dealership. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I traded it in for an Elantra and I have about a 2-ish% interest rate. So that is kind of the story of the debt that I did pay off. And like I said, I have a ton of those videos if you want to go watch those videos. They're back from like 2020. I have a whole debt payoff playlist on my channel. But that's a bit about like my debt journey, I guess. And now obviously we have a mortgage, which we're not like rushing to pay off. We were putting extra money on it because we have a low interest rate, but we've paused that because of moving. And the only other debt that I have is my car. So I bought a brand new car right out of school because I'm an idiot. I don't think we should be doing that, okay? Buying new cars is just, they just depreciate so fast. Like, I don't know why I did that. I was so dumb. I think I was still in university and I was like, oh, let me go buy a brand new car. Like, idiot Carter, why'd you do that? You did not need that. Traded it in. I had like a 6 or 7% interest rate. It was honestly insane. Maybe 5%. It was really high. My payments were super high. So when I paid off my student loan debt and we moved into this house, we bought this house. When we moved into this house, our first house that we bought, I traded my car in for an older car. I traded in for an older Elantra with lower payments, and my interest rate is about 2%. So that's really, really great. I'm choosing not to pay my car loan off early because for me, I think there's a few routes you can go. You can either go the full debt payoff route, like kind of Dave Ramsey style, or for me, I kind of followed more of a, I don't really know what you would call it, like investment route. So the average return on investment for like a TFSA, let's say, is 6% in a year. Instead of putting extra payments onto my car that only has a 2% interest rate, I'd rather put that extra money into my investments because one, it just helps your credit, right? When you're making those payments on time, those come out auto pay from my account. And so And so I'm not really in a rush to pay that off unless I like won the lottery and then I could pay it off maybe. But that's kind of a little bit of a history with my debt journey. But when it comes to paying off debt, if you don't really know where to start, I highly recommend just making a chart and laying out all your debts with your remaining balance, your minimum monthly payment, your interest rate, and your remaining term. And then there's so many different methods you can follow. You could do like the snowball method, which is where you start from your smallest to your biggest, which I think is a really great way to go because it gives you that momentum. Or you could do the avalanche. I'm not sure what other ones there are, but I did the snowball. I mean, I only really had one debt I wanted to pay off, but that's the approach I took. But once again, you can try different things and see what works for you. But I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed with like savings and investments and debt, etc. And really, it's all about just laying it out and keeping it as simple as possible. The second we get overwhelmed and frustrated is when I find that, for me at least, I kind of like give up on my finances and I kind of just like, I'm like, oh, fuck it, whatever. And that's not what we want. We want it to work for us in the long term. So keeping it simple. What's that expression? KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's what I tell myself. Keep it simple, stupid, okay? This was like such a chatty, random video, but I hope it was helpful for you guys. Let me know if there's any ways that you guys keep your finances organized. I would love to know. I'm filming it on Friday, so happy Finance Friday. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!